based on the consumer's behavior on your site and beyond your site, we are able to understand, to infer demographic and psychographic information about them and use that information to create micro personas. And therefore, we feed that micro persona with all the data points we're seeing. And then when we have someone come to the site and we believe they match that micro persona, that allows us to figure out what those recommendations should look like. And then the third piece is intent. Obviously, someone comes to your site first time, and you want to do merchandising for them that makes sense. As soon as they click, you now have intent, and you can decide what products to put in front of them based on who they are and where they are in the buying cycle. So that's just a bit about how our platform works. So let me talk about some best practices that we recommend for merchandising. The first is inspiration. And if you think about the buying funnel, and especially you think about what's happening in the world right now, where you have more people moving to e-commerce, right? We're seeing, at least on our side, we're seeing Christmas peak level traffic for most of our retailers, and we're seeing a lot more browsers on the site. So when you think about these customers, you're really your first goal is to inspire them to engage beyond being a browsing consumer. And one of the best ways to do that is with inspiration, with the products that are most popular, the products that are trending. And if they're a return customer, you might like type products. And these are things you want to place on the homepage, in your collection section, and potentially in their product pages, because this is the beginning of the journey. And again, once someone clicks, you now have intent, and you can further customize what you're putting in front of them. The second best practice that is very important is using related items to increase the average order value, right? And if you think about, and this is where I want to talk about, trade-offs. If you think about Amazon, and for those of you who sell on Amazon, you've seen this, right? People come in, they buy one item. The AOV is quite low. The conversion is high. In many of our customers, we see an increase of both AOV and conversion, but typically we recommend that a customer focus on one or the other based on what your business is. So for example, we work with a company that has, baby equipment. That would be strollers and high chairs. And that buyer tends to come in once, maybe twice while she's pregnant. And she can potentially buy everything she's looking for on that site. So when we work with them, our goal is to really do things that drive AOV versus pushing customers to convert as quickly as possible. And some of the things that you want to do in order to create this dynamic is you want to relate to the person and the products, right? So once you've had someone click on something, something about them, you can use this micro persona to identify other things that a buyer like them might want. You also can use related products standalone to say, here are the items that someone who's looking at a high chair may want. They may want, bibs, for example. And in that way, you're guiding your customer. And that's what personalization really is about, is the guiding of the customers. Another very successful thing that we're seeing companies use is bundles. This is an example from Motion RC, one of our customers. And you can see that what they're doing, and they sell all kinds of model planes, model boats, etc. And you can see here that they are offering items that make sense for that purchase. So you may not have a customer come in and be like, I want to buy the server for an airplane, a model airplane. But once they're buying the model airplane, You want to provide them all the pieces that they may need instead of having them go elsewhere. And so this is, a company that uses the bundles very successfully. And then the third piece is using cross-sell and upsell in a more manual way. So we see a lot of customers who say, here are the 5 products that are related to each other, and I specifically want to use a cross-sell or an upsell placement to get that customer, to drive specific products. And so this ability to combine manual and an automated placement gives you control, also allows you to have a set it and forget it model. And one of the things that I recommend for anyone who's doing cross-sell and upsell is to have a fallback, right? In our world, you can make that fallback, for example, popular or related, because the last thing you want is a partially populated box on your site. That's real estate that you should be making the most of. So one more thing on the increasing AOV, and that is in cart. One of the most common questions we get from customers is, should I put recommendations in the cart, or is that going to take people off their buying journey and reduce the purchases? And what we've seen really consistently across our customers is that putting items that are related, whether that be the cross-sell or the upsell or the bundles, into the cart increases conversion and is certainly a best practice. And I would say, this is Scalpers, one of our customers in Europe, but I would say whether you're using a full cart or the side cart, the slide cart, you definitely want to offer customers items that they may want to add to that cart, because it does make a difference in your AOV without impacting your conversion. The third item is that you want to optimize. Just putting recommendations on your site isn't going to necessarily maximize the value. You want to do A/B testing in order to identify exactly where those placements should go, right? So one of the things we've discovered is that language really matters. Using related items versus customers have also bought. Those two sets of language may be very different for your customer base, and it's worth testing with that same placement, with the same products, to see, is there an improvement I can make with the language? So definitely think about what are those terms, and you want to A/B test them. The second is to think about what your recommendations should be doing on that page. One of the things we see up front that many companies do is they overuse recommendations. They'll put like 3 different boxes on their site, and you're in that world, you're increasing choice overload instead of, or exacerbating choice overload instead of decreasing it, right? But that's something that depends on really what your site looks like and what else you have on that page. So we recommend, and what you're seeing on the right-hand side is the Limespot A/B testing dashboard. But we recommend in general that you continue to test once you have your recommendations in place, to see what types of recommendations work best on what pages, the number of recommendations, and where they go on the pages. So I think that's really critical, because the whole point of this is to have an experience that helps guide that customer to purchase. And then the fourth thing is thinking about how you can use recommendations beyond your site. So 2 of the ways that Limespot helps you do that is with shopping placement and with email personalization. So Google Shopping Placement, this is something that's in preview for us, is a product that takes your catalog and takes all the information we know. So we have audience information and product information, and auto-populates the products into the Google shopping page, which is free placement, right? That's your baseline, and then allows you to use the data we have, the enrichment data, to do placements into advertising. And this is especially important for companies under that, $25 to $50 million mark, because depending on what you're spending on Google, the Google AI engine may not know what it is that you're like, will not have necessarily have learned your products. So what we do, and we're doing this in partnership with Google, is we pass our data, the attribute data, the targeting data, through our system when you pay for advertising, and that information educates the Google AI system, and the result is an increase, a better return on ad spend. The second place where you can really leverage these product recommendations beyond your site is email personalization. And this is one of the things that we do in partnership with Omnisend, which is the ability to take these product placements and put them into emails. And we make it really simple to do this. You create you take your placement, you put your look and feel on it, you decide which box you want it to be, and then you basically take the HTML for that box and place it into your email template. And when you send the email, the content will dynamically identify what to be put in that. And one of the reasons why you want to do this instead of using static environment is, you may have a product sell out, you may queue up your email and then decide to wait a week. And what you get when you use the dynamic personalization is not only do you get the right products for the right consumers, but you also are ensured that what you're putting in front of them is the best of your site at the moment that they view it. So that's critical here. So with that, I would love to open it up to any questions. Happy to talk about any related topics or what's happening in the industry. Just a little bit of background on me, which I didn't do at the beginning, is that I've spent the last 10 years in retail and retail enablement. I've been both on the retailer side, most recently running a business unit at Amazon, as well as on the B2B side, selling to online merchants. So beyond just Limespot, there are other topics I'm happy to talk about, like the dynamics that are happening in the industry.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sharon. Okay, we do have a question that came in, and briefly, apologies for any background noise. I guess they decided to mow some grass right below my apartment right now. So, okay, let's hopefully it doesn't black out my audio here. So, first question for you. Oh, where did it go? Okay. When you pay for advertising on Google for SEO and shopping placements, how do I know when the money spent is really converting into sales? Also, how do we control the spending?
Yes. So the way this works is you would set up a separate product feed and you put the money towards that product feed. So you are fully in control, the same way you would spend through Google Shopping directly. You say, I want this amount of money to go towards this. And through that feed, we do the recommendation placement. As far as the return on it, we track in our analytics the purchases that are associated with your spend. So when you go in, we have a page in our analytics that show you what every recommendation placement is providing as far as views and conversions. And we include in there a tracking for that Google component. You can also see the purchase, the clicks and the impressions and all those pieces in Google Analytics, just as you would if you were using this without us.
Okay,
Did I
awesome.
I may have that question.
Yeah,
Did I
yeah,
cover-
yeah. I think so. I'll have the person chime in if that wasn't the direction they wanted to take it, I guess. But okay, so another question here for you. So you talked about suggesting products to customers by displaying bestsellers, trending now, as well as you might like products. So what are your thoughts on the hierarchy should be there, and also where would new arrivals fit into that too? So kind of a twofold question for you.
Yeah. It's probably going to frustrate everyone, but the answer is really, it depends. And that's why we do these A/B tests. I would say that new arrivals, that's usually something that you as a merchant want to put in front of consumers. Definitely recommend putting those on the pages. What we see often is that trending, most popular, and collections are on the homepage, and you might like is something that you put in subsequent pages, right? Because at the point in which you're doing you might like, and we're combining what we know about the consumer, again, the products and the intent, you now have that first click of intent, and that allows you to further personalize for that consumer.
Right. Okay. Yeah, definitely. That makes. What was that?
The second half of that question was, can you repeat the second half?
Yes. 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 Sorry, I'm just trying to find it here. Yeah. So it's not only just a hierarchy, what that should be about bestsellers and trending now, and also where would new arrivals fit into that?
I guess we did cover that piece,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is arrivals, placement of new arrivals on the homepage is best practice.
Okay, and then kind of off the question, or the question you just answered, really about recommendations and where to put, product placement. So another question that came in is product recommendations and emails. Are there only certain emails that you recommend to do this in? Is it more cart abandonment, or is it more after you do a purchase and you suggest other items that say, hey, you bought this black dress, you might also like these shoes or jewelry or whatever that goes with it?
Yep, that's a great question. I would think about it in sort of those same categories that we talked about, which is inspiration, right, and increasing technically AOV, but I guess the follow-up purchase on that. So in the inspiration, what we see people do is you've got your monthly inspiration email. This is a great place to drop in collections, new arrivals, the things that you would put on the homepage to get people excited to come back to the site to browse, right? And that's really like, hey, we haven't seen you, come back to the site, and you should check. The second category of things of emails are the activities that are based on their behavior on the site, right? And that is cart abandonment, following up on that message, not only with the item that they left behind, but the you might like items, because it may be that customer was like, I like this, but not enough to purchase. So maybe you can, hook them with something else, as well as the follow-up emails to show them what else is related that they might like. So we recommend it actually both sets of emails. And again, because they're personalized and they're dynamic, depending on when the customer's opening them, they're always getting what's best for them based on what your site is looking like, which is valuable.
I was just going to say that it's what you want to see because it's interesting to you, and it's exactly based on what your shopping habits are and what you want to see again, versus, me going into an email and seeing something that, or a website, a product recommendation is nothing that I'm interested in, versus something like that will, as you mentioned, will make me want to come back and make me more interested and engaged with that brand. That's really, I think, what the whole point is making sure that the brand really understands you and knows what you're looking for, your shopping habits, and what why you continue to come back to that site. Okay, so I'm just looking at another question here. So are there certain times during the year where recommendations are better or worse than others? For example, holidays are more about gift giving, but recommendations might be personal to shoppers based on interest or what, everything we just chatted about? Or is it okay since they're also buying for themselves during this time of the year? So I guess really the question is just focusing more on the time of the year for recommendations, holiday versus non-holidays, and what that might look like.
Sure. It's a great question. We have a best practices doc that we provide to our customers around the holidays, because it's right. You're right. It's a slightly different buying behavior, right? You may have someone who's a male buyer who is coming
Right.
in and jewelry or looking at clothing, and so that, for example, we're using the data. We have to say what jewelry, what clothing is working for that consumer. But you may want to make some changes in the way you do this. You may want to move away from the you might like, right, and move more towards related items, right, because related items are going to be relevant for that person or for that buying experience, even if they're not relevant for that buyer, right? So that's one of the changes we recommend. And really making it so that you're pushing more towards product and less towards person in that window of time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. And then I guess maybe at that point you kind of switch gears back to maybe it depends on the brand and the person, the campaign, right? But I don't know if you've seen a change after the holidays, before the holidays, if that kind of comes into play then too.
Yeah, so we usually recommend that the changes get put in place around mid-November,
Okay.
right? So you're coming in before a week and making some of the adjustments, and then keeping them in place through, the early January time period,
Right.
and then back to the other buying model. So because you're really looking at the gift giving cycle, how do you make the balance between the individual, as you said, who's buying for themselves, and the individual who's buying gifts? And then once you get to the January timeframe, you're really back to someone who's buying on their own behalf.
Right.
And so you want to actually make, right? When we work, we have a dedicated customer success manager for anyone who is an enterprise customer, and that CSM will actually get in touch with the brand and make for that site based on what we already know to optimize.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something huge to have and utilize too through Limespot, because there's so many different avenues and kind of holes you can go down with the personalization and making sure you're getting into that right customer base and talking the right way to the right people there. Okay, so we have a question from Travis. So I'm just going to read this out now. So how do you recommend using a service like Limespot or optimizing your website for SEO for companies like Vistaprint, where the product is custom made to the customer and imagery may be limited due to client disclosure issues? With custom designed product, e-commerce is challenging but growing venture. So I don't know if it's something you might want to take offline or.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the use case that's being outlined there.
Yeah.
I will say that the SEO we normally see is done by the brand in conjunction with the site, the main page, right? So if you have a product page, you know what product that is. What we're doing is putting recommendations that drive navigation to other pages into the site, right? So the SEO, we tend to see companies doing that SEO independent. I don't know if that entirely covered the question. Travis, feel free to me afterward if you talk about it in more detail.
Okay, and this is an interesting one. So have you seen a difference in the verbiage, such as trending now? I know I kind of touched on this a bit earlier on, versus top sellers. So trending is more in social media realm and might be more appealing versus, something that's not social media, for example. So I guess what's your take on that? And maybe if a brand or merchant's coming to you with this question, what would you recommend?
A lot of this depends on who your buyer is, right? Your demographic. You're going to have different language if your buyer is a teenage boy versus if it is, men and women in their 40s and 50s, right? So just like on the rest of the content on your site, you're really trying to use a voice that represents your brand. Here, you also want to do that. So
Right.
we tend to have a recommendation for the brand to start the testing, and then that's a thing you would want to put through the optimization cycle. And the optimizations are fairly easy to do. They're completely self-serve. You go in and you can make the edits in your boxes and your placement, and then we track the examples. I mean, we track the data that is in conjunction to those tests.
Okay, awesome. Then I guess hold on, do we have another one? Okay, so another question just popped in here. So apart from the upsell feature on the cart page, can you recommend other ways to increase AOV?
Yes. So I think related. So if we start with the product page and then we'll go to the cart page, I would say on the product page, adding related items, adding bundles, recommend putting in upsell and cross sell. Those are proven ways to increase the AOV and put things into the cart. Once you get into the cart, you also have those same tools available to you. And so those are opportunities. I mean, upsell to me is a very specific, in our world, it's a very specific thing where you're saying, people who buy, if it's a jewelry site, the necklace, the upsell may be the earrings, but
Right.
cross sell, for example, we know that people who've bought that necklace may also buy scarves is another category that we may do, or the frequently bought together, because that's another version of that where we're showing what it is that this customer may want. So upsell, is one piece, but putting these other components in various places, and we're able
Okay.
to put them into the JavaScript if some people have the overlay, as well as in the traditional cart view.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I assume with the upselling, it's more maybe geared towards customers that are repeat buyers, perhaps, or do you normally recommend to just try to do the upsell, maybe with someone that just came once? I guess maybe it also depends on the brand and maybe the price value of the product.
It does. It varies depending on the segment that they're selling in as
Yeah.
well. So, you talk brand, but in the furniture category, you may not use upsell. You may be doing things like the bundles, right? You may have a couch and you're adding, you're recommending the love seat and giving a discount on it, or
Right, right.
and to me, cross sell. Or you may have a cleaning kit and you may be saying, these are some, here's the bundle, add the cleaning kit for only $10.
Yeah.
So it really, I mean, we work with, our customer base looks like the Shopify ecosystem. We,
Mhm.
work with all the segments. And so, depending on who the brand is, we work with them to identify what's going to work best for them.
Okay, awesome. And unless there's any other questions that come in, I just have one more, I guess, to close out, because this is always interesting to me. So if you're a Shopify merchant, your new Shopify merchant coming onto the scene, if you will, just starting your website, and you're interested to get started with optimization, personalization, everything that was just covered, what would be some advice that you would tell them right now to walk away with, to maybe implement, maybe 2-3 steps to take, and just some advice you would give them on that?
Yeah. I think start simple, don't overdo it, right? Maybe a box per page. We have a product, a silver product, our base product that's for specifically the conversions on, on-site conversion. Come in and use it and figure out and start to put these baseline placements that are in this document.
Mhm.
So this is really what we start with.
Right. Yeah.
Also use haven't talked about this, but also, you know, putting placement around recently viewed, which is always useful. I think that, and we, you know, I don't know if I talked about this earlier, but no matter what you do, you should have product recommendations, whether you're using Limespot or not.
Yep.
I want you to use Limespot, but recommendations create that discovery, even if they're not AI driven. The AI allows you to get more out of it. But I would say, no matter who you are, if you're not doing it, you're a brand new Shopify company, definitely do baseline recommendations in place, and then start playing with it if it works for you.
Yeah, I love that. And it's definitely huge to have those recommendations too, because like we were just saying, it keeps you engaged with the site, keeps you coming back. So definitely huge takeaway there. Then just one more quick question, unless there's any others. Someone's wondering if you also work with BigCommerce.
Oh, we do work with BigCommerce. So we have the same functionality available across Woo, Shopify, and BigCommerce. And you can get to it directly through our website, through the pricing page, and it will take you through the install process.
Okay, awesome. I think that's it. I don't see any other ones coming in, but do you have any maybe closing remarks, something, one last little takeaway for our audience here?
I guess, you know, if I had to think more broadly about this, this is a really interesting time for the e-commerce space. And it is the time when you want to invest in the technologies that are going to support you, whether that is, you know, Omnisend on the email side, whether that's personalization, because you know, what we're all seeing is a 3 to 5 year acceleration in the adoption of e-commerce, and you are getting customers who are coming in and browsing. And one of the interesting things that's happened through this pandemic is that with Amazon taking several months where they only shipped essentials, you're seeing this shift where consumers are going directly to brand sites.
100%.
No longer going to
Right.
And, you know, really quickly on this, if we have a moment, you know, that changes consumer behavior all the way from acquisition, where they're no longer doing their first search for a product on Amazon,
Right.
they're doing it on, and their funnel looks completely different. And then you have this potential to get better margins out of them and to create that direct brand experience, which is going to allow you to be more relational and less transactional. So I think, you know, no matter where you are in your journey, this is an important time to see what you can invest in to make the most out of this new traffic environment.
Yeah, I could not agree more, because I think everything you just said, where people are, even myself included, are going to the brand's websites instead of Amazon or any other, you know, websites like that, and just buying direct from there. And I think a lot of exactly what you just said, a lot of these brands and websites are seeing an uptick in traffic, maybe not being fully prepared, not really ever seeing this coming, and nor did really anyone of us did. So realizing that they don't have the product recommendations or personalization or whatever it is, and, you know, working in full speed ahead to get that all implemented and ready to go. So yeah, could not agree more. Very well said, and perfect thing to end on. So that's all we have for the session with Limespot. And Sharon, thank you so much for your time today. The presentation was great. I really enjoyed it, and hope everyone else that attended got as much value out of it as I did. So if anyone's interested, to reach out to Sharon, perhaps, maybe offline, I can take it. If someone reaches out to me, we can touch base after. But that's all we have for today. So thanks so much, Sharon, and I hope to speak and talk to you soon, and enjoy the rest of your day.